Hey, I'm Zach with Brothers Chemical. Today we've got a busted graphic that's came in to get removed. So this graphic's been left on entirely too long. We're already seeing yellowing where the customer tried to pull it off herself. There's some paint lifted, a little bit of rust, but bad news doesn't get better with time. So you got to get this decal off. At this point, heat alone's not going to do anything. A steamer's not going to pull it up. A heat gun, IR, doesn't matter. Alone is not going to pull this up. You've got a couple options: dry ice blasting, an eraser wheel, or vinyl off. We think vinyl off is the best option for this right here. So we've taken 2 or 3 minutes, masked our plastics and acrylic, but we're not going to have vinyl off running down this hood. We're going to apply vinyl off today in a pail with a 4-inch foam roller. And we're just keeping it directly on the graphic. This is perfect weather for removals. We've had a monumental heat wave come through. Any area where the sun is really bad on decals, especially on your horizontal surfaces, like hoods and roofs especially. So when you get to this cracked point, it's very difficult to remove, but you can remove it quickly with vinyl off. We'll show you guys how to do it real quick. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is you always wanna start with a warm surface. We know that it's hot as Hades out here, and the white portion of this hood is reading 150, 151. The decal's reading a little bit hotter. It's a darker color. It's gonna attract more heat at 155. This is great weather to be removing decals. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, start rolling it on. I'll show you, we'll put a couple layers on. I don't think we're gonna bag it just because we've got so much heat coming from the sun, but we'll roll it on, allow it to tack off. It's gonna soften that film so that we can pull it off with our big blade scraper. Just to show you the tools that we're using, we like these little pick scrapers. They're pretty good. And then also we've got a 3x4 chemical resistant big blade scraper. They're beveled on both sides. You don't want to scrape glue with the squeegee you use to wrap cars. So you can get those at Brothers. We really like those. You can modify them, put it in a paint scraper. Also got this small little holder. Gives you a little bit better angle when you're scraping. So we've got our removal tools, just a little bit of vinyl off. We've got just a pint here. So a little bit goes a long way. You're not just dumping gallons of vinyl off on this hood. Probably only take, I don't know, 8 to 10 ounces, something like that. Got a foam roller and a pail. And then for our heat generation, we're using the sun. The chemistry in vinyl off mixed with heat softens this film enough to have it be able to be scraped off and removed without having to use an eraser wheel. Eraser wheels create a lot of dust. That's bad for your health. You're tearing polyvinyl chloride into millions of tiny pieces and then inhaling it. So you don't want to do that. Always wear a mask if you have to use an eraser wheel. They're great for regular surfaces, but dust is the enemy of a professional wrap shop. It's super easy. You're not using a lot of the product. So this is just a pint of vinyl off. All right, we've got our vinyl off on our roller. I'm just gonna start rolling it on. You could use a 9-inch roller. I really like the nap rollers. They hold up a lot better and they're easier to reuse than the foam rollers, but you can use either. You could use a paintbrush. The only thing you don't wanna do is you could spray vinyl off on, but we don't send it with a sprayer, don't recommend it with a sprayer, primarily because people don't think about their overspray. So they go to spray it on the hood and it ends up on the headlights and the plastic, and you don't want that. You could wipe it on as well, but there's something with a roller or paintbrushes that as the top of that vinyl begins to start kind of reacting to the vinyl off and the heat and softening, there's the manual action of a roller or a brush kind of starts pushing that vinyl off into the decal. Removing, kind of the layers that are getting soft and pushing the vinyl off in. So I'm not sure if we're gonna bag this right now. We're gonna see how it reacts to this first layer. All vinyl is different. Reflective vinyl, permanent signage, calendared cast film. It'll all react a little bit differently depending on the manufacturer's specs. But this is just a good rule of thumb on how you can remove some of these cracked decals. Reflective is a little bit different. Paint protection film a little bit different, but super easy to do. So you can see there's no vinyl off running down the front of this hood. I'm putting it all directly on the decal. All right, so we're putting a good layer on. What'll happen is vinyl off is, it's slow to evaporate, which is what you want, but it will tack up. And it almost kind of concentrates. Think about like, boiling down a stock or something. When there's a little bit of water in vinyl off, that starts kind of evaporating out. It kind of holds the solvent in, it evaporates out and it kind of concentrates it. So if you've got really, really cracked decals, layering vinyl off is not a bad idea. Now, people ask, is vinyl off safe for gel coat? It's very safe for gel coat. You see a lot of decals that need to get removed on boats and RVs. That is a gel coat, which is kind of a polyester. Polyester is very resistant to solvents like vinyl off, so that's super safe. Is vinyl off safe for glass? Absolutely. Stainless steel, something like a Cybertruck or maybe a tanker truck, you can absolutely use vinyl off on there. All right, you can see this vinyl off is going to start to tack up. And as it does, I can feel that film starting to get soft. So it's nice and hydrated. I don't have any dry spots. It's accepted as much vinyl off as it can before it would start running. So I'm gonna leave it alone. All right, so this is the film we just pulled off. Vinyl off in a scraper in the sun. If I start seeing it completely dry up, I'm just gonna rehydrate. But it's really reacting the way that I want it to right now. So all I'm doing is just adding a little bit more vinyl off. All right, so I'm gonna grab a different tool. So I was using a big blade scraper in our PVC holder, but I'm gonna go grab a 4-inch paint scraper. This is our big blade scraper that we've cut in half, modified into a 4-inch paint scraper. And I'm being real easy with the tool. Want to avoid, you want to avoid tool marks. Save as much as the paint as you can. All right, so if there's an area where the vinyl's not lifting, I'll just add a little bit more product. There's some of the pigment that started coming off of the film. Well, I don't want that pigment to dry on the surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray it down with just a little bit of Adhesive-Off Pro Low-VOC, just to keep any of that pigment that comes off the film from setting in. And then, it's already gonna start to soften any of the glue that might be left up. And I'm not saying, this is a hard job. It is super hot out here, but I love it because it's the best weather for removing. This can be difficult in some of your northern states. Somebody that's in Montana may be able to do this, but maybe they have to do it in their shop. You can use IR, shortwave IR, like Solary. It's like a Chinese company. They make shortwave IR, just paint curing lamps. But you're not going to find an IR lamp better than the sun. Just misting it with adhesive remover, just to keep everything lubricated, so any adhesive residue doesn't have a chance to harden. All right, so we just pulled all of this film up. Took us 20 minutes start to finish. So at this point, we're not going to be dealing with any vinyl off anymore. We don't have a lot of adhesive residue, or not a lot of adhesive residue on the surface. So we're just going to spray it down with Adhesive-Off Pro Low-VOC. So we'll just make sure that we've divorced any of the adhesive from the substrate. And sometimes when you pull these stickers off, the clear coat, I don't really know why. For some reason it yellows. There's a couple ways. You can use Ghost Off oxidation remover to remove a lot of that staining, but a lot of times if you just leave it in the sun, it'll go away. All right, so we got all our film up. Hit a little bit of Adhesive-Off Low-VOC. We'll start wiping this down. We're gonna wash this truck with Ghost Off oxidation remover before we give it back to the customer. But anytime you use a glue remover on a vehicle, you always want to just wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol. So we'll just wipe it down with isopropyl and then get it ready for Ghost Off, and we'll get it back to the customer. If you want to find our products, Vinyl Off, Ghost Off oxidation remover, Adhesive-Off Pro Low-VOC, Adhesive-Off Pro, we've got tools, scrapers, emblem removers, anything you guys need to get a vinyl wrap off, visit us online at brotherschemical.com.